What's going on, everybody? My name is Mr. Leong, and welcome back to another episode of the Startup Starter Kit. Thanks for tuning in, and today we are here to learn about what payroll is. Now, I assume that your business is growing a little bit, or you expect to expand, which means that you're going to hire some new employees for your business. You can't just give them cash and just say, "Here, this is your paycheck." You need to have it properly documented, take off the appropriate taxes, because if you don't, you're going to face a lot of fines from the government. And that's the whole reason for the payroll process. I'm going to explain some things that you need to know about payroll and paying your employees. Let's get started. All right, thanks for dropping by and thanks for liking, viewing, and subscribing to my channel. It really helps to grow the channel, and if you think this is helpful information, don't be shy and share it to somebody that might be interested in learning more about business basics and fundamentals. So payroll explained. So your business is growing to the point that you need to hire employees, and understanding and doing payroll properly is essential so that you don't get fined by the government and you follow all of the necessary rules. Payroll is a function of paying employees, distributing money in the form of checks, paper checks, or direct deposits to individual bank accounts. Now, I much prefer direct deposit for a few reasons. There's a good paper trail, but also it goes straight into the employee's account. I find that checks oftentimes are kind of archaic. They're a little bit expensive sometimes because you have to print out checks, and sometimes they even get lost as well. Payroll also ensures that the individuals get benefits and the company complies with rules. If you're just paying your employees illegally with cash, and let's say you have to furlough them or lay them off, they aren't entitled to all of those unemployment benefits that you might get. So it's important that when you hire employees for your business, you follow the rules properly so that they're entitled to any benefits in case you need to furlough or lay them off. So how does payroll work? Now, if you hire employees for a business, it's got to be a routine process. You can't just conduct a payroll anytime you kind of like it. There's generally a few times where maybe you want to dish out some bonuses, and that's kind of irregular, but it's based on the period that you choose, whether it's semi-monthly or weekly or bi-weekly or every month. And you might need to consider your cash flows for your business. But generally, most of the time, every 2 weeks or every half a month, you're going to conduct the payroll process, calculate the hours for your employees, and then pay your employees based on the net pay and how much taxes you have to take off. So let's say Carl works 80 hours at $15 an hour for 2 weeks, and you're paying employees bi-weekly. So Carl's gross pay is about $1,200 for the paycheck. Does this mean you give Carl $1,200 or in cash? You have to take off some taxes, whether it's Social Security taxes, FICA, or income taxes. So that gross pay is actually going to be a lot less, which is why you really need to be careful when deducting taxes for paychecks and to ensure that you're following the process correctly. So you also deduct some taxes from Carl's gross pay and you contribute a similar amount. In addition, when you do something called a payroll remittance. Payroll remittance is at the end of the month, you basically calculate how much taxes you've taken off from your employees and then send it all in one lump sum payment to the government. Now, when it comes to payroll, a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs are quite unfamiliar with the process. So it may be outsourced to like a bookkeeper or accountant, or maybe you just pay a little bit of commission. But in this case with payroll, when you're deducting taxes, it might be wise to get a professional involved in the process if you're unfamiliar or not just really good at numbers. So I'm going to go over how it's calculated, but give you an overview of the payroll process and things to consider before paying your employees. The first thing you need to do is you need to set up a payroll system. Now, some companies use QuickBooks, which is kind of like an accounting slash payroll software that also manages inventory. And this is a mechanism in which they can use the payroll module and then write checks to the employees. You can also use ADP Payroll, and ADP is going to help you auto deposit the amounts into the employees' accounts. So there's a few mechanisms. You can also write checks if you are a small business and you only have like 1, 2, 3, or a small number of employees. You might want to consider e-transfers or writing out checks, but you just do whatever is most efficient and the easiest for you. I find that small business owners don't want to have to worry about checks, and they want the money to be ensured that it just goes straight into the accounts. So they might vouch for like an auto deposit ADP software, but whatever you feel is best for your business. They each have their pros and cons, so do some research as to the best fit. Second, you want to decide how often you have to pay, and we call these pay periods. So you can do every 2 weeks or every week or semi-monthly or monthly. That's really up to you as an entrepreneur. There might be some benefits depending on cash flows, because maybe you're waiting for some large contracts and maybe you want to pay in a longer interval, but that's really up to you. But if you're conducting payroll every week, I find that it also is a little bit time consuming, but it may be beneficial for employees because they don't want to wait long for paychecks. So there's also two types of employees. You can have a salary fixed amount. It's really easy to do payroll for a salaried employee because it's the same amounts every time. So every pay period, they get like 2,000 or 3,000, and that's fixed. Whereas hourly, you need to calculate how many hours they worked and then multiply it by their wage rate, because it's going to vary every single pay period. Maybe sometimes they work like a long sort of duration for a pay period, maybe like 80 hours, and maybe another payroll period, it could be like 20 or 30 hours. So hourly pay, there's definitely going to be some variations. And then you decide how much you want to pay your employees. Now, this is a very sticky point of conversation, because obviously employees want to be highly compensated, but businesses, they have to watch their expenses. They can't afford to pay everybody $50 or $60 an hour. So here are some things to consider when trying to come up with an appropriate pay for your employees. You want to consider what other companies are paying for similar work. Maybe you want to come within a range, the value to the business, how much you can afford to pay, and also whether this position generates a lot of revenue or not. So let's say, for example, if you are working or starting an accounting firm and you're paying your employees like $15 or $16 minimum wage, but some other similar competitors are paying like $20 or $22 an hour, it's going to be hard for you to recruit employees for your business. So that might be something to consider, because these prospective employees are also considering multiple options. You also want to consider the value to the business. Janitors also and engineers provide a lot of work and value to a business, but you probably don't want to pay them or $90,000 or $100,000, because that's not the main value driving activity for your business. You can also consider how much you can afford to pay. Maybe you have a price target for these prospective employees, and think about, is this position going to generate a lot of revenue? Because maybe you also consider a commission as well on top of their salary. And consider perks as well. Bonuses will help you to attract employees to your business. And then, very crucial step, you want to collect the employee information. So ask them to bring a copy of their SIN card, a void check to conduct the direct deposit, because it has the numbers at the bottom, the bank number, transit, account number, and then the relevant information, date of birth, gender, address, contact information, because you're going to need to file this at the end of the tax year, because you have to say, this is their SIN number, here's how much you got paid, how much taxes were deducted, and you're going to use this to file their own personal tax return. So the information has to match up. You might also get employees to complete a TD1 or W4 form. And this looks like this. And this is going to help you to determine how much taxes to deduct. For example, if a person is working multiple jobs, they may ask one company to deduct all of the taxes, and then another company, no taxes deducted because they're working multiple jobs. And that's something that the employers need to know when calculating how much taxes to deduct and the appropriate room. So information is really important. You want to ensure that you're following all of the rules so that you don't get fined as a business. Did you know that if you're late filing some forms to the government, you can face significant fines and interest if it accrues? Anyways, now we collect the timesheets. If they are on an hourly basis, maybe you want to write down all of the amount of work that they've done and then get it signed off. So in this case, we have a few projects, a pay period, and I'm just using a generic template for you to take a look at, and then all of the hours accrued. So then you can see, oh, Monday I did this amount of work, Tuesday I did this work, and then you can calculate how many hours and overtime hours were necessary, because overtime hours are billed at a different hourly rate. Sometimes it's 1.5 or double pay. So this is going to help you to prepare the payroll. So it includes the hours worked per week, different days, hours worked each day, and then sometimes you need a supervisor to approve of this, because you don't want employees to work 60 hours and then say, oh, nobody's approving my time. I can just work as much as you want. So that's why there needs to be these checks to ensure that you're not getting billed or employees are not working excessively or not being productive. So in this case, maybe you have Sam who worked for 5 days this week, 4 hours each day for 20 hours of pay. If you get Sam to work 20 hours in one day, then you're going to be in trouble. So timesheets are going to be effective to really calculate and ensure that the employees are following the right processes and to ensure that payroll is going along very smoothly. Next, you want to consider any special cases, an example being overtime. As we saw in the previous example, any sort of hours you worked over 8 or 10, you need to get paid at time and a half or double pay. So that's going to vary because they're working on an hourly basis. And then you have holiday pay. If your employee works on a statutory holiday, then your employee may get 1.5 or double pay, especially if it falls on like Easter Monday or Good Friday. So in this case, just check your government's rules on the following. And then you have vacation pay or benefits. Some businesses are mandated to pay 2% in lieu of any benefits. So these are going to vary based on where you are and your local government and jurisdiction. So just check your rules for the following. There may be also differences in minimum wage. So that one is an easy one. Just make sure that you don't pay below the minimum wage. And then you want to deduct taxes to calculate the net pay. I'm going to show you an example of how to do so. So you can use gross pay, calculate the amount of taxes withheld, and the payroll software can easily help you to make these calculations. Just make sure that it's updated with the right rules for each year, because each year the rules are going to be a little bit different. And then you can also use an Excel document if you want to calculate or to create a pay stub. So in this case, you can write down how much their gross pay was, their net pay, and at the end of the year, this can be handy for preparing those T4 forms. So I'm going to show you a little bit about the Canadian Payroll Calculator. This is a tool that is pretty up to date and accurate, and in fact, a lot of small businesses in Canada use this. Is there another version in the US that's similar? Let's see. So we have salary, and then we can type an employee's name. We can go, Mr. Works for. And then we have the province, because obviously the province is going to have different provincial income tax rates. So this is going to be a handy tool. Let's say we get paid semi-monthly And then the period is, let's say March 31st. Okay. And then we calculate the salary. So this is where you can put salary or the wages, like an hourly wage. Maybe we say 3,000. And then no bonus payment, no taxable benefits. And then most of the time you can just click this. And since it's early in the year and I haven't surpassed the CPP annual contribution limit, we can just put the actual amount to date, or just leave it blank. And then boom, it's going to show that out of a 3,000 gross pay, I'm supposed to receive 2,261. So that's what I'm going to get in terms of net pay from my employer. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and you can also use an Excel spreadsheet as well for this purpose, because this is based on formulas and pretty straightforward to use. Pretty handy for a small business. Things to remember: payroll is often outsourced, so don't feel bad if this is a little bit complicated. You can go to an accountant or bookkeeper for that matter, and you can also do it by hand manually or use a payroll provider. Payroll providers are also going to cost a bit of money unless it's built into a program that you're already using. But it's pretty straightforward if you have an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can easily calculate how much taxes to deduct. Just make sure your formulas are correct and based on the current year's deductions. You can also keep good control, and you should, of your records. So how much was deducted, like this Excel spreadsheet, make sure that everything is properly recorded, and this makes it very easy for T4 and other SLEP preparation at the end of the year. All right, that was the basics of payroll and how to pay your employees, and things you should know before doing so. Thanks for watching the video. I hope that it was informative. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about business basics and fundamentals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye-bye.